Hello, my name's Andrew, and today we're talking about the pros and the cons of the Freet Danum versus the Selva. So both of these are lightweight barefoot shoes for hiking, but the Danum is a little heavier at 290, and the Selva is slightly less at 275, but both shoes are wide across the midfoot, and Freet has one of the best toe box shapes because it's squared off in the side and then squared off mostly in the front, and there's just a tiny bit of taper on the outside. Plus both shoes have a good amount of stretch with the knit material here, and there's a lot of perforation up front as well, plus a bit more across the whole upper of the shoe. So I found they worked really well for anywhere from freezing up to like 75, 80 degrees. And with both shoes, I could feel a nice amount of wind coming in through the toe box. Although like all knit materials, they are closed off. So if it gets more like 80, 90 degrees, it can get a little bit sweaty in there. That said, in terms of water resistance, the sole wraps up the side. So you get some pretty good protection from puddles and mud. And the fabric is dense enough that it'll resist some water. But if you step through a puddle or you get a lot of water splashing over top, they will get wet. I also really like Freet's tongue design. It's actually perforated, so it brings even more air coming through, and the lockdown is excellent for both shoes. You've got the knit material which kind of stretches around your foot like a sock, and Freet's got this sort of like in-out lace pattern which creates a really nice balance, although I think I prefer the flat laces on the Danum because you can just feel the Selva's round laces a little bit more, but they're plenty squishy and I didn't have a problem with either one coming untied. In terms of height, the Selva's a little taller and the Danum's a little bit shorter, but they both have a nice stretchy collar that helps keep out stones, and if you tie the laces a little looser up top, you can easily slip them on and off. Then you've also got a fairly thin insole which just adds a little bit of extra padding if you need it for rough terrain, as well as some perforation here for breathability. Although I found both shoes to feel really comfortable without insoles, and when I do want a little extra padding, I usually go with a wool felt insole like this just because it's more flexible, a little bit better in terms of antimicrobial and temperature regulation than synthetic. Because the fabric's fairly smooth, I think you could wear them barefoot, but because Freet uses recycled bottle yarn, I usually prefer to wear merino wool and Injinjis because it just keeps natural materials against my skin, and I like the toes because they give a little bit more airflow. Last year I tested the Freet Howgill, and although I really liked it, I found it to be a little bit loose because there just wasn't enough structure in the upper, but the Danum has a really excellent heel cup that keeps you from sliding around, and the Selva actually has the same thing, although it's just on the inside, you can't see it. And then the front of both shoes offers a little more freedom, so I found it to be a really good balance of both worlds. Also, one last note about the upper is that it is stitched all the way around, which is always great for long-term durability. In terms of the sole, both are zero drop with some really excellent flexibility all around, which is really impressive for a thicker sole, and although they're both pretty similar, the Selva just seems to have a slight edge. In terms of the tread, the Danum is more geared towards firm ground, with a bit wider and closer together lug pattern that's good for protecting against sharp rocks, and a bit more shallow too because the lugs are 4mm and the midsole is 3mm, so you get a little more coverage and density in there, especially around the back heel area here, whereas the Selva is a little bit more geared towards soft ground because you can see there's more spacing in between the lugs. And they've also got some micro texture which is nice for biting into mud and slippery terrain, plus the lugs are just a bit deeper for better grip with more ground feel coming up through the midsole. So I kind of preferred the Selva for a little bit of extra agility, whereas the Danum was a little bit more tank-like, but both of them rolled down more smoothly than something like the Freet Muddy, which has more structure. And for me, that made them a lot more versatile because it allowed me to go on casual hikes instead of just using them for super challenging terrain. Although for walking on roads, both soles are really more than you would ever need. In terms of fit, both Freets seem to run true to size for me. And for reference, my feet are 10.5 inches or 26.67 centimeters, and I went with the 44. But if you're between sizes and you're planning on wearing more of a thin sock, I think you could probably go down a size. In terms of alternatives, this is the Vivobarefoot Magna Forest Escape, which is one of Vivobarefoot's widest styles. It's got a ton of room in there, and the leather does stretch over time. Also has a great slip-on collar like Freet, although it is wool blend, so I always like having a little extra natural materials in there. And the side support is similar as well with this strap, although I like Freet's design better because they've got the support down lower, and then this part up here is free so that it's not rubbing on your ankle bone. But in terms of the sole, it's 9.5mm, so thicker than both Freets, the Danum and the Selva, but still some really good flexibility. And the tread pattern is more similar to the Selva with wider spaced lugs, but they are fairly wide, so the Escape can handle pretty much any terrain. And it's made with Michelin rubber, so I found it just to be a little bit more grippy on wet terrain versus Freet. That said, it is significantly heavier at 484 grams, so it's a good boot for backpacking on extreme terrain, and the leather upper does make it more water resistant, but for fast hiking, the Selva and the Danum definitely feel more agile to me. Alright, so those are the pros and the cons of the Freet Danum versus Selva, but if you'd like to support the channel, you can shop with the referral links down below, browse and filter more products with the shoe finder tool at my website barefootwear.org, or watch my zero drop transition video to learn more about barefooting. Finally, if you have a question about the Freet Danum or Selva or about barefoot shoes in general, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, catch you next time, peace!